The first hound stepped fully from the mist, its face splitting open into a jagged grin of light. The soldier raised his knife. His voice was a whisper. "Let's see if they bleed." The plateau shook. The mist thickened, and the hounds stepped closer. The soldier's chest heaved as he tried to steady his breath. Their eyes glowed white, empty yet piercing, and each step they took pressed against his skin like icy knives. He had fought beasts before, wolves, dogs, men who acted like both, but these were different. These were not flesh and bone alone. These were shadows given teeth. The maid stood tall, her blade glowing silver, her body between him and them. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Do not fear the dark. Fear what it hides." The soldier swallowed hard, gripping his knife until his knuckles turned white. His mind screamed, "Run," but his body stayed where it was, drawn to her presence, pulled into her strange calm. The first hound lunged. It moved without sound, like lightning wrapped in smoke, its jaws opening wide, a grin of pure white light. The maid twisted, her blade slashing through its body. For a moment, the creature split into two streaks of shadow, then reformed, whole again. Its grin wider. The soldier's heart dropped. "They don't die?" He shouted. The maid's voice was sharp. "They can be broken, but only by fire of will, not steel alone." The soldier had no fire, only his knife, only his fear. The hound lunged again, this time toward him. He raised his knife without thinking, and the creature slammed into him, its shadowy weight crushing him to the ground. Its jaws opened, inches from his throat, white light pouring over, his face like burning frost. He screamed, driving the blade upward into its chest. The knife sank deeper than it should have. The creature froze, its white glow flickering, its body shaking. Then it burst apart into mist, vanishing with a hiss. The soldier lay there, chest heaving, knife trembling in his hand. The maid turned sharply, her eyes wide. "You broke it." The soldier pushed himself up, his voice rough. "I stabbed it. That's all." "No," she whispered, "not just that. Your will went into it. They felt it before he could answer." Two more hounds leapt from the mist, circling fast, faster than eyes could follow. One slashed at the maid, its claws screeching against her silver blade. The other came for the soldier again. He ducked, rolling across the stone, its claws carving the ground where his head had been. He lashed out with his knife, but the hound vanished into smoke and reappeared behind him. He spun, desperate, striking. Wild, his blade cutting only air. The creature lunged, its jaws opening to swallow his arm, and then something happened. For a heartbeat, the soldier's knife glowed. A faint, pulsing light, not silver like hers, but red deep and burning. Like an ember buried in ashdot, when the blade struck the hound, it didn't pass through. It burned. The creature howled its first sound and dissolved into nothing. The soldier stumbled back, staring at the knife, his chest rising and falling like a drum. What was that? The maid's face was unreadable, but her voice was sharp. The beginning. The plateau shook again. The mist roared like a storm. Dozens of eyes appeared in the dark. Not 2, not 10, dozens. The soldier's stomach dropped. "How many are there?" The maid's blade burned brighter, her voice steady, though her body tensed. "As many as it takes to break you." The hounds charged. The maid moved like a storm. Herself, her blade cutting arcs of light, her feet gliding across the stone. Every swing of her weapon carved through shadow, forcing the hounds back, splitting them before they could reform. The soldier fought clumsily beside her, his knife flashing, his breath ragged. He ducked, rolled, slashed again and again. Every strike that carried his anger, his fear, his stubborn refusal to die. Those strikes hurt them. The blade glowed brighter each time, the red ember spreading, pulsing. But they were too many. Too fast, too relentless. One leapt onto his back, slamming him into the ground. Its jaws closed on his shoulder, white light searing his skin. He roared in pain, stabbing upward, his knife sinking deep. The hound shrieked and burst apart. Not another came. Then another. He was drowning in them. The maid shouted his name, though. He had never given it to her. Her voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. "Stand, soldier, or you will be swallowed." He forced himself up, blood on his arm, rage in his chest. He swung wildly, each strike glowing brighter, his knife now burning like molten steel. The hounds hesitated, just for a breath. And in that breath, the maid unleashed her full power. Her blade erupted with light, silver fire spreading in all directions. She spun, faster than thought, carving through the pack. The light washed over the plateau. The hounds, shrieking as they melted into mist, their glowing eyes snuffed out one by one. Silence fell. The mist rolled back. The plateau shook, then stilled. The soldier collapsed one knee, gasping, sweat pouring down his face, his knife still glowing faintly red. He looked at her, his voice raw. "They're gone?" The maid's breathing was steady, but her shoulders sagged, her glow dimming. For now. The soldier looked at his blade again, his hand trembling. He whispered, almost afraid of the answer. "What am I?" The maid met his eyes, her own silver gaze unblinking. "You are what they fear. You are what the old ones tested. You are the weapon they tried to erase." Before he could respond, the plateau shook again. But this was different, deeper. Darker dot the great black door behind them, pulsed with light. Its symbols twisting faster, glowing brighter. The hum in the air grew louder, pounding in their skulls. The maid's face turned pale. They heard the fight. They are waking. The soldier staggered back, his chest heaving. "Who's waking?" Her voice was low, almost broken. "The old ones." The ground split, cracks glowing like molten rivers. The mist rose higher, wrapping around the plateau. And from the black door came a sound low, endless, older than language. A voice. Not one. Many doubt the soldier clutched his ears, his mind shaking, his vision splitting. The maid fell to her knees, her blade dimming, her face twisted in pain. The voice poured into them, not words, but meaning, burning into their bones. Why does the weapon still walk? Why does the ember still burn? The soldier's knife glowed, brighter in his hand, pulsing with red fire. His heart pounded in rhythm with it. Louder, louder. He screamed, falling to his knees, the blade searing his palm. The maid's eyes widened in horror as she reached for him. "Soldier, fight it. If they claim you, there will be nothing left." The voice thundered again, shaking the world. "The ember belongs to us." The black door began to open dot, and from the endless dark beyond, something vast began to move. The soldier clenched his teeth, forcing his legs to move behind them. The hunters grew louder, their red eyes flashing closer through the dark. Every step felt like the last. Then, suddenly, the trees opened. Before them was a clearing. At the center, a great stone arch covered in glowing symbols, pulsing like a heartbeat. A maid's eyes widened with relief. "Through there," she urged, pulling him toward it. "They cannot pass. The old ones will not allow it." The soldier's heart raced as they neared the arch, but the hunters were close now, bursting into the clearing, shrieking, their claws slicing the air. One leapt, its talons reaching for the soldier's back. At the last moment, the maid spun, her blade slashing upward, cutting the creature down, ichor spraying across the grass. She shoved the soldier forward, her voice fierce. Go, now. He stumbled into the arch, the glowing symbols flaring bright as he crossed. The world shifted, the air changing, the whispers silenced. Behind him, the maid followed. Stepping through as another hunter lunged, the creature slammed into the barrier of the arch, shrieking as its body burned with blue fire. Dissolving into ash, the soldier fell to his knees, gasping for breath. He looked up, his eyes wide. They were no longer in the same forest. The air was different, clean, heavy with strange energy. The sky above shimmered with colors he had never seen, swirling like a living canvas. The maid stood beside him, her blade still in her hand, her chest rising and falling, her glowing eyes turned to him, calm but sharp. You are alive, she said simply. But this was only the beginning. The hunters will not stop. They will call others, and soon the true masters will come for you. The soldier's blood ran cold. He had escaped the cabin, escaped the hunters. But he knew now there would be no rest, no hiding. The war had followed him into the stars. The soldier staggered to his feet, his legs trembling. The strange air filled his lungs, thicker than any smoke, heavier than any storm. Yet it made him feel alive in a way he could not explain. Colors danced across the sky, bending and folding like living rivers. Streaks of violet, crimson, and gold, twisting into shapes that faded before he could understand them. The maid stood beside him, her blade lowered but not put away, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. This place was not safe, her body told him that. Her silence told him that. He followed her gaze and saw what lay ahead. The forest was gone, replaced by fields of stone that rose and fell like frozen waves, black rock gleaming with faint silver veins in the distance. Tall shapes loomed, pillars carved with ancient symbols, some broken, some leaning, as if crushed by invisible hands. The land itself felt alive, humming beneath his boots, pulsing in rhythm with his heart. What is this place? The soldier whispered, his voice low. The maid's reply was quiet but certain. The realm of the old ones, the first builders, the ones who shaped paths between worlds. They left it behind long before the hunters were born. The soldier frowned, gripping his knife tighter. If they're gone, then why do I feel like we're being watched? The maid turned her eyes to him, and for the first time since he had met her, there was hesitation in her gaze. They are not gone, she said softly. They are. Sleeping, waiting, and sometimes listening. You must not call their attention. Not yet. Her words pressed against him like a warning carved into his bones. He swallowed hard, forcing his eyes away from the twisting sky. But his instincts screamed that something out there already knew he was here. They began to walk, the stone beneath their feet echoing like hollow metal. Every step felt too loud, every breath a risk. The soldier scanned the horizon, his body tense, expecting the hunters to tear through at any moment. But none came. The arch behind them shimmered faintly, but the forest beyond it was gone, swallowed by darkness. The soldier asked, "Why can't they follow us here?" The maid answered without turning, "Because this realm does not accept them. The hunters are forged things, twisted flesh bound in chains of power. The old ones do not suffer such creations." The soldier exhaled, relief flickering in his chest, but the maid's next words killed it. "But their masters, they will not be stopped if they look for you here. The old ones may awaken, and if they awaken, even I cannot say what will remain of us." The soldier clenched his jaw. Every word from her mouth opened more questions than it answered. Yet there was no turning back. Not now. As they moved deeper, the land began to change. The stone fields gave way to bridges of glass, stretching over endless pits of shifting mist. The soldier looked down once, only once, and he wished he had not. The mist moved, shapes twisting within it, faces of men and women, mouths open in silent screams, eyes locked on him, reaching hands pressing against nothing. He looked away. His chest tight, the maid noticed, her voice sharp. Do not look too long, they are echoes. Souls caught when the old ones pass through. If you give them notice, they will not let go. He said nothing. Forcing his eyes forward, the bridge groaned under their steps, though it never cracked. The silence grew heavier, broken only by the hum of the air. The soldier's thoughts spiraled, questions clawing at him. Finally, he spoke. Why do they want me? The hunters, the masters, why me? The maid slowed, her back stiff. You carry something they fear, something they want. Even if you do not yet know it, the soldier barked a bitter laugh. All I carry is scars. That's all war left me. She turned then, her glowing eyes cutting into his. Not scars, soldier, memory. Your kind remembers what others forget. You hold on to pain when others break. You survive where others die. And that terrifies them. Her words struck him, heavy and strange. He wanted to deny them, to call them madness, but deep inside, a part of him believed. They walked on, the strange bridges leading to a wide plateau of stone. At its center stood a massive door, blacker than night, taller than any building he had ever seen, carved with symbols that twisted as he looked at them. Never the same twice. The maid slowed, her voice hushed. This is where we must wait. The hunters cannot breach it, the masters cannot see through it, but the old ones may test you. The soldier felt his throat tighten. Test me? How? Before she could answer, the ground shook. The door pulsed with light, symbols glowing one by one. The hum of the air grew into a roar, and the soldier fell to one knee. Clutching his head, visions crashing into him, he was back on the battlefield, the smell of smoke and blood choking him. He saw faces of his fallen brothers, reaching, blaming, their mouths moving but no sound coming. Then the vision twisted his knife in his hand, but it was glowing, burning, not steel, but something alive. He saw himself driving it into the chest of a creature unlike any he had faced, something vast, armored in bone and shadow, its roar shaking the stars. The vision burned away, leaving him gasping, his hands trembling. The maid's hand was on his shoulder, steadying him. Her voice was calm. They showed you, didn't they, what you may become? The soldier's voice was raw. They showed me death, the maid's glowing eyes softened, but her tone stayed sharp. No, soldier. They showed you your place. You are not prey, not slave, not sacrifice. You are a weapon, and that is why they fear you. Before he could answer, the ground trembled again. But this time it was not the old ones. A sound tore through the air. A distant howl, sharp and layered, carried across the strange sky. The maid's eyes widened. They have found us, the master's hounds. The soldier's stomach dropped. What are they? Her blade snapped up, glowing brighter than before. You will see soon enough. From the edge of the plateau, the mist began to rise, curling, thickening. Shapes formed within it, tall and lean, their bodies shrouded in shifting shadow, their eyes glowing white. Like burning ice, their steps made no sound, but the stone cracked beneath them. The maid's voice was fierce. Stay near the door. Do not fall. If they touch you, it is over. The soldier gripped his knife, his heart pounding like a drum. Every instinct told him to run, but there was nowhere to run. The hounds were coming, silent and endless, their white eyes locked on him. The maid stepped forward, her silver glow flaring, her voice ringing across the plateau. Then let them come. The soldier stood beside her, his knife ready, though his hand shook. The mist grew taller, swallowing the edges of the plateau. The hounds closed in, circling, their white eyes multiplying. In the dark, the soldier's breath caught. The battle was coming, and he knew this would be worse than the hunters, worse than anything he had ever faced. She moved to the table, picking up a small silver device from her belt. It shimmered as she touched it, projecting a faint map of stars and lines across the wooden walls. "This," she said, pointing, "is the web of factions, empires, and broken worlds fighting for control. Every path leads to war. Every path leads to blood." The soldier stared, the glowing map surrounding him like a cage. "Why show me this?" "Because," she whispered, "you are not outside this web. You are at its center." He felt his stomach twist, his voice cracking. "What do you mean?" She touched one of the glowing points, a bright light that pulsed, stronger than the others. "This mark belongs to Earth, your world, small and weak compared to others. But you carry something inside that can decide the path of this web. Some will want you alive, others will want you dead, all will want to control you." The soldier's breath grew short. The stranger's words echoed in his mind again. "You are the key." It no longer sounded like madness. "But why me?" he whispered, almost to himself. The maid lowered the device, the light fading, leaving only shadows in the room. "Because fate does not ask permission, it chooses." Silence fell heavy between them, broken only by the faint creak of the wooden floor under his boots. The soldier dropped into the chair, his knife resting on the table, his hand covering his face. For the first time in years, he felt not like a soldier, but like a pawn on a board he had never agreed to play. The maid stood near him, her voice gentler now. "I did not want this role. I did not want to be bound to you. But I have learned something since my arrival." He lifted his head slowly, his eyes narrowing. "And what's that?" "That you are not the man they told me you were," she whispered. "They told me you were reckless, dangerous, blind to others. But I see a man carrying ghosts. A man who fights not for power, but because he cannot let go of the ones he lost. And that is why you are more dangerous than they can imagine." The soldier felt his throat tighten, emotions he had buried threatening to break free. He turned away, unwilling to let her see. "Stop talking like you know me," he muttered. She didn't argue, but her silence spoke more than words. Then, suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the night, a distant pulse, deep and metallic, echoing through the forest like the heartbeat of a giant. The soldier jumped to his feet, grabbing his knife. The maid's expression turned deadly serious, her glowing eyes narrowing. "They've found us," she whispered. He looked at her sharply. "Who?" "The hunters," she replied, her voice low. "They were sent to claim you, dead or alive." The soldier's blood ran cold, so it was true. Every word, every warning, the trap was already closing in. And somewhere deep inside, he felt that the war he thought had ended was about to begin again. Only this time, it was not a war of soldiers, but a war for him. The night outside was no longer quiet. The pulse that shook the forest came again, low and heavy, like the drumbeat of an army moving closer. The soldier stood frozen, his knife gripped tight, his breath sharp in his chest. The maid stepped forward, her glowing eyes locked on the window, her voice calm but filled with warning. "They are here," she whispered. "The hunters do not stalk in daylight. They come when shadows hide them. They come when fear is thick." The soldier moved to the window, pressing his back against the wall, peering out into the trees. At first, he saw nothing but the dark. Then the forest-shifted branches swayed, though there was no wind. Shadows stretched where no moonlight touched, and between them, faint red glows blinked in the distance, pairs of eyes watching. "How many?" the soldier asked under his breath. The maid's reply was steady. "Enough to tear this place apart. They do not come in small numbers. They do not waste effort." He cursed under his breath, his hand tightening on the knife. He had fought wars. He had faced men with guns. But this was different. He could feel their presence pressing down on him, like the weight of a storm before. "It breaks." The maid moved swiftly, closing the lantern with one hand, plunging the room into near darkness. Only her faint glow remained, her silver skin catching a little light. "You must listen," she said, her voice urgent now. "You cannot fight them head on. You are not ready. Not yet, if they take you. It will not be quick. They will drag you across stars and chain you before masters who do not forgive." Her words struck him, but he shook his head. "I won't run, not from them," he muttered, his voice like steel. The maid's glowing eyes studied him, a flicker of frustration in them. "Then you will die," she said simply. Before he could reply, the sound outside changed. The hunters were moving faster now, their heavy steps crunching leaves and snapping branches. The red eyes drew closer, shifting between the trees like fireflies of death. And then he heard at their voices, not human, not animal, but something in between, guttural, clicking, layered with echoes. The maid pulled a small blade from her belt, its edge shimmering faint blue. She looked at the soldier with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "If you truly mean to fight, then stand beside me. But know this, you will see what they really are, and you may never sleep again." The soldier gave a grim nod, his knuckles white around his knife. "I stopped sleeping years ago," he replied. The first strike came sudden and brutal. The wall near the door exploded inward, wood splintering as a clawed hand tore through, long black fingers ending in curved talons. The soldier stumbled back, but the maid was faster, her blade slicing clean, severing the hand from its arm. A shriek filled the night, not from a single throat, but from many, like the forest itself screamed. Through the broken wall, the soldier caught his first clear glimpse. The hunters were tall, their bodies twisted, armor fused with flesh, there. Faces hidden behind bone-like masks, red eyes burning through cracks. They moved not like beasts, not like men, but like something caught between, each step jerking yet deadly precise. The soldier's gut clenched. War had shown him many horrors, but nothing like this. The maid darted forward, her movements sharp and fluid, her blade flashing as she cut down the first that pushed through the door. The soldier lunged beside her, his knife plunging into the neck of another, black ichor spilling across his hand. Burning like acid, he gritted his teeth, shoving the body back, ignoring the searing pain, but more came crashing through windows, tearing at the roof, red eyes flooding the cabin. It was not a fight they could win. "Move," the maid shouted, shoving him toward the back door. The soldier resisted, slashing another hunter, but she grabbed his arm with inhuman strength, pulling him. "They want you alive. That is their mistake. We use it." They burst into the forest, the cold air slapping their faces. Behind them, the cabin groaned as more hunters poured inside, the sound of claws and bone scraping wood filling the night. The soldier ran, the maid at his side, their feet pounding against the earth. The forest twisted around them, branches clawing, roots reaching, but they kept moving. The hunters followed, their shrieks echoing through the trees, their glowing red eyes multiplying. They were faster, stronger, relentless. The soldier's lungs burned. His legs felt like iron, but still he pushed. Memories of battlefield retreats flashed in his head, running through smoke, through fire, always chased by death. But this time, death had claws and a hunger that would not stop. The maid's voice cut through the chaos. "There is a place, not far, if we reach it. They cannot follow, but we must not stop. No matter what we see, no matter what we hear." Her words chilled him, but he nodded. Anything was better than being torn apart in the dark. The forest grew stranger as they ran, the trees bent in unnatural ways, their branches twisting into shapes that looked like faces. Eyes, mouths, the air grew heavier, pressing against his chest, and whispers began soft, endless, slithering into his ears. Voices that were not there, voices calling his name. "They." Soldier shook his head, trying to block them out, but they grew louder. He stumbled, almost falling. The maid caught his arm. pulling him forward, her voice fierce. Do not listen. It is the forest. It bends to their hunt, but it cannot touch you if you do not give it permission. The soldier's mind raced. Who was this stranger, and what did they want with him? The silence stretched heavy. Finally, the maid spoke, her tone cold and deadly. Rule 4. No intruder must come within reach of the master. And with that, she moved, faster than the soldier had ever seen. The forest erupted with motion, the sound of struggle, and the hiss of alien voices. The soldier stumbled back, his knife ready, but unable to join, because in that moment he realized the truth. This maid was not protecting him out of duty or culture. She was protecting him because something was hunting him. And the rules of service were not just rules. They were chains binding her to a mission far darker than he ever imagined. The forest echoed with the sound of the struggle. Branches snapped, leaves scattered, and the glowing eyes of the alien maid cut through the darkness. The human soldier held his knife tightly, his heart pounding in his chest, but he didn't move forward. Something inside told him this fight was beyond him. The maid moved like lightning, her body twisting, striking, blocking, every motion too, fast for his eyes to follow. The stranger fought back with equal skill, their movements sharp and controlled. Two glowing figures clashed under the pale moonlight, their shadows stretching long across the trees. It was like watching two predators fight for dominance. The soldier could only stand there, helpless, watching the battle unfold. Finally, with a sharp strike, the maid knocked the stranger to the ground, her metallic blade pressed against their throat. The stranger hissed, their voice strained, but not afraid. You're breaking the old code? The maid leaned closer, her voice cold. The old code no longer matters. My master must live. The soldier felt a chill. Old code? What were they talking about? He stepped forward, trying to make sense of the scene. Stop, he shouted. Someone tell me what is going on. The stranger's glowing eyes shifted to him, full of something between pity and warning. You don't know, do you, human? They whispered. The soldier gritted his teeth. Know what? The maid pressed the blade harder, silencing the stranger, but the soldier raised his hand, his voice steady and firm. No more secrets. If you don't let them speak, I will never trust you again. The maid froze, the words hitting her harder than any weapon. Slowly, she pulled back the blade, her body still tense but obeying his command. The stranger coughed, rising slowly, their cloak torn and face revealed. The soldier gasped. They looked, almost like the maid's same pale skin, same faint glowing marks on the cheeks, same sharp features, but their eyes held a different fire, one filled with bitterness. You have no idea why she is here, do you? The stranger said, staring straight at the soldier. She tells you she is a maid, but that is a lie. She is your shield, your weapon, your watcher. The soldier frowned, anger mixing with confusion. And who sent her? The stranger's lips curled in a faint, sad smile. The same people who ruined our world, the ones who use humans like pawns in their endless wars. The maid hissed, stepping between them. Do not listen to them, master. Their tongue is poisoned. Their words are traps. But the stranger did not stop. Their voice grew sharper. Did she tell you about the contract, human? Did she tell you that your life is not your own anymore? That every breath you take is tied to her duty? The soldier froze, the words slicing through his mind like a blade. He turned to the maid, his voice shaking. What contract? Is it true? The maid's glowing eyes flickered with hesitation. She bowed her head, silent, and in that silence, the soldier felt the answer. The stranger took a step closer, lowering their voice. You were chosen, not because you are strong, not because you are special, but because you are dangerous to them, to us, to everyone. Your survival changes everything. The soldier's chest tightened, his mind spinning. Dangerous. How could he, a single human, be dangerous to entire alien factions. The maid raised her head sharply, her voice cutting the air. "Enough," she snapped, her eyes blazing. "You will not confuse my master with half-truths and riddles." The stranger stared at her, their glowing eyes narrowing. "You are afraid. Even now, you know the moment he learns the truth, he will not look at you the same way." The tension between them grew heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. The soldier couldn't take it anymore. He stepped forward, pointing, his knife at both of them. "Stop playing games with me. I fought wars. I buried friends. I know what lies look like. Now tell me why I need a bodyguard, why I need rules, why I need to be watched like some prize animal." The maid looked at him, pain flickering across her face. But before she could answer, the stranger whispered one last line. "Because you are the key human. The key to ending what they started." Then, with a sudden leap, the stranger vanished into the forest, moving so fast they became a blur of light. The soldier raised his knife, but it was useless. They were gone, swallowed by the shadows. Silence. Returned to the forest, heavy and suffocating. The soldier turned to the maid, his voice sharp. "Explain now." Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she lowered her gaze, whispering softly, "I will, master. But not tonight. Tonight we must leave this place. They will not be the only one hunting us." The soldier clenched his fists, his chest burning with anger and confusion. He wanted answers. He wanted truth. But as he looked at her glowing eyes, he saw something else. Fear, not for herself, but for him. And that fear was more terrifying than any words the stranger had spoken. As they walked back through the dark forest, the soldier's mind raced. The rules, the stranger, the contract, the word key. He had thought his war ended years ago, but maybe, just maybe, it was only beginning. The night air was heavy as they returned to the cabin. The soldier's footsteps were sharp, every step fueled by anger and confusion. The maid walked beside him, silent, her glowing eyes lowered as if afraid to meet his gaze. The forest seemed to close in around them, whispering secrets he still did not understand. When they reached the door, the soldier pushed it open with more force than he meant to. The wooden walls creaked as they stepped inside. He lit the lantern, its warm glow spilling across the small room. Then he turned to face her, his jaw tight, his knife still in his hand. "No more delays," he said, his voice hard. "You tell me now, what did that stranger mean? What is this contract, and why are you here?" The maid stood still, her hands folded before her. For a moment, she looked almost fragile. Then she lifted her head slowly, her glowing eyes meeting his with a calm that carried both sorrow and strength. "Was assigned to you," she began, her voice soft yet steady, "not because you needed a maid, not because you needed company, but because your existence is more dangerous than you know." The soldier's heart thudded, his grip on the knife tightening. "Dangerous to who?" he demanded. "To everyone?" she whispered. The soldier frowned, his voice rising. "That makes no sense. I'm just a man. I fought my war. I survived. That's it. Nothing special about me." The maid stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "There is a law, old and unbroken, a law written in the stars, long before your world even knew ours. It says that some humans are born with something rare inside them. Not power you can see, not power you can touch, but power that shifts balance, power that can end wars or start them." The soldier laughed bitterly, but there was no humor in it. "Balance, power, I'm no chosen one. I'm no savior. I'm just tired." Her gaze softened, but she did not back away. "You think so, but the truth does not change because you deny it. The contract was made when you survived the last, or when you walked away from death too many times, when fate chose you instead of the ones who fell." He felt his chest tighten, memories of battles flashing in his mind, Smoke, blood, friends screaming, silence after the gunfire. He had survived when others hadn't. But was that luck? Or was it something else? The maid continued, her voice heavy with weight. The contract binds me to you. Your life is mine to protect. Your death is mine to prevent. If you fall, I fall. If you are hunted, I stand between you and the blade. This is not service, this is law. The soldier stared at her, his anger giving way to disbelief. So, I'm not your master, he muttered. You are my purpose, she corrected softly. Her words hit harder than he expected. For a moment he wanted to shout, to tell her it was all lies. But deep down something in him knew there was truth in her glowing eyes. He shook his head, forcing the storm of thoughts away. And that stranger? What did they mean by the key? The maid's face grew dark, her lips tightening. That is not something I was meant to tell you yet. But you have seen too much already, so you must know. Assigned an alien maid for protection. Her obsession with duty terrified me. The war was over, but the memories were not. For years, the human soldier had lived with battle scars, both on his body and in his mind. He wanted peace, a simple life, far away from blood and fire, but the Galactic Council had other plans. They told him he was to be assigned a helper, someone who would make his new life easier. He thought it would be a machine, maybe a robot servant or some minor worker. Instead, a transport ship landed in front of his quiet home, and out walked her, an alien maid, dressed in plain clothes, her eyes glowing faintly under the sunlight. She bowed with strange grace and spoke in perfect human tongue. My duty is to serve you, she said softly. Her voice was calm, but her presence was heavy, like a shadow that filled the air. The human studied her, tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered slightly in the light. She did not look like a simple maid. She looked like someone hiding a deeper truth. At first, she acted as expected. She cleaned the rooms, cooked food with careful precision, and followed every instruction. But even in her silence, she was watching. She studied his steps, his breathing, the way he held a cup, the way he looked at the sky. Her eyes never missed anything. The human felt uneasy. A normal maid would do her work and leave, but this one, she was too alert, too focused, as if she was waiting for something to happen. Days passed, and the uneasiness grew stronger. When he sat at the table, she stood behind him. When he went outside, she walked 3 steps behind, always scanning the area. At night, he thought he was alone, until he felt eyes watching him from the dark corner of the room. She was there, silent, guarding him like a soldier on watch. One evening, he tried to question her. You take this role too seriously. He said, you are just a maid, not my guard. She bowed her head and replied, a maid must serve in all things, even protection. Her answer was simple, but her tone carried a hidden weight. The soldier tried to ignore it. Maybe this was just her alien culture. Maybe this was how they treated service. But his instincts, sharpened by war, whispered something else. This was not normal. The neighbors began to whisper too. They saw the alien maid following him everywhere. They noticed how she refused to speak with others. They noticed how her eyes glowed brighter when strangers came near. One man joked, she's less a maid, more like a prison guard. The human laughed, but the words sank deep into his thoughts. That night, he woke suddenly. The room was quiet, the air still, but something was wrong. His instincts screamed. The same feeling he had in the battlefield right before an ambush. Slowly, he turned his head, and there she was. The alien maid was standing beside his bed, perfectly still, perfectly silent. Her eyes were fixed on him, glowing faintly in the darkness. He felt his heartbeat thunder in his chest. Why are you here? He whispered, his voice tight. She answered calmly, to protect you from danger, even the danger you cannot see. The human sat up, his hands clenched. There is no danger here. The war is over. he said sharply. But she did not move. She only tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something far away. Then she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "The war is never truly over. Master, it follows you, and so must I." Her words struck him like cold steel. Was she speaking of his memories, his nightmares, or did she mean something more? The silence between them stretched like a knife. Finally, she bowed her head and stepped back into the shadows. But sleep never came back to him that night. From that moment, he knew this alien maid was no ordinary servant. She had a purpose far beyond cooking and cleaning, and deep down, a part of him feared that purpose was tied to him in ways he could not yet understand. The next morning, she moved about as usual, silent and graceful, but every time her eyes lingered on him, he felt the weight of her unspoken secret. The human soldier realized that his quiet life was not quiet anymore. The arrival of this alien maid was not a gift. It was the beginning of something dangerous, something he was not ready for, and something he could not escape. The human soldier tried to carry on with his life. He wanted normal mornings, simple meals, and quiet evenings. But nothing felt normal anymore. The alien maid was always there, silent yet present, like a shadow that would not leave. At first, he thought she was just strange. But soon he noticed something even more troubling. She had unspoken rules that she followed with strict precision. It was not the kind of routine a simple maid should have. It was something far deeper, something older. One morning, as he prepared to leave the house, he found her standing at the door. She did not move, blocking his path. "Step back," he said, trying to pass. Her voice was calm but firm. "Rule 1. Master must not leave without me." The soldier froze, his hand still on the doorknob. "What rule?" he asked, confused. "The rules of service," she replied, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Every servant of my kind must follow them, without question." He laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of cultural quirk. But the way she stood there, unflinching, made his smile fade. "Fine," he muttered, and allowed her to walk with him. Yet as they stepped outside, he felt the neighbor's eyes, watching the strange pair again. A decorated human veteran, followed everywhere by a tall alien woman who looked more like a bodyguard than a maid. The day passed, but the words "Rule 1" stayed in his mind. That evening, as he sat at the table, she appeared at his side and whispered, "Rule 2. Master must never eat food that I have not tasted first." Before he could protest, she calmly picked up a spoon, dipped it into his stew, and ate a mouthful without hesitation. The soldier stared at her, shocked. "Why would you do that?" he asked. She replied in her quiet way, "Because enemies use poison. Master must never suffer harm." He slammed the spoon down, anger rising. "There are no enemies here," he snapped. But she only bowed her head and said, "Enemies are always hidden. Master may not see them, but I do." That night, he thought about the rules. They were not random. They were survival codes, not for a servant, but for a soldier. And it made him wonder, who exactly was she? A maid, or something far more dangerous? The next day, he decided to test her. As the sun set, he walked toward the old forest path behind his home, a place no one visited anymore. He moved fast, hoping to lose her. But when he looked over his shoulder, she was already there, moving with silent grace, her glowing eyes watching every shadow. He quickened his pace. So did she. Finally, he spun around and shouted, "Why do you keep following me like this? Why are you acting like I am a prisoner?" For the first time, she looked unsettled. Her voice was low, almost trembling. "Because of Rule 3, she whispered. "And what is that rule?" he demanded. She hesitated, her hands tightening at her sides. "Rule 3. The master must never be left unguarded, not even for a moment, not even in sleep." The soldier felt a chill run down his spine. Her words explained everything. Night in his bedroom, the constant watching, the endless following. But it also raised a darker question. Who had given her these rules? And why were they all about his protection? He wanted to demand answers. But her glowing eyes stared at him with such intensity that his words died in his throat. On the way back, the forest grew darker. The sounds of night echoed around him, rustling leaves, distant cries of unseen animals. Suddenly, she stopped. One hand raised, her head tilted, her glowing eyes scanning the darkness. "What is it?" he asked sharply. She whispered, "Someone is here." The soldier froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife. He still kept strapped to his boot, but all he saw was trees and shadows. "Don't play games with me," he hissed. But before he could finish, she stepped in front of him, her body tense. From the darkness, a branch cracked, then another. Something or someone was moving closer. The alien maid's voice was calm but commanding. "Stay behind me, master." The soldier almost laughed. He was a veteran, trained in countless battles. Yet here he was, standing behind a maid as if she was his shield. But something in her stance, the way her body shifted with practiced precision, made him obey. A shape appeared in the shadows, tall and cloaked, its eyes glowing faintly like hers. The soldier's heart pounded. The stranger stepped forward, their voice low and sharp. "So, they sent you to guard him." The alien maid's body stiffened. Her hand moved slightly, not toward a weapon, but toward the edge of her dress where something metallic glimmered.